The wind howled across the frozen ground. Snow flew like white knives through the air. The trees stood tall and bare, covered in ice. The cold was sharp enough to burn. Jonas pulled his coat tighter around his body. He had been walking through the forest for 2 hours, searching for broken tech parts from a crashed drone. But now something else had caught his attention. Tiny tracks. They weren't from a human. They were small. Very small. Light steps, uneven, and heading deeper into the woods. Jonas knelt down and touched the footprints. They were fresh. Who or what was out here in this deadly weather? He followed the trail, carefully watching his surroundings. The snowstorm made it hard to see far. His boots crunched softly with each step. The tracks led toward the cliffs. That was dangerous. There were caves there, and wild beasts. But he kept going. He couldn't ignore the prints. After another 10 minutes, he saw something. At first, it looked like a pile of snow beside a broken tree. Then the snow moved, just a little. Jonas ran to it and dropped to his knees. It wasn't snow. It was a child, a small alien girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old in human age. Her skin was light purple, but her lips were turning blue. Her fingers were stiff. Her clothes were torn and frozen. She wasn't moving much, just breathing, barely. Jonas felt a stab of fear in his chest. No, no, no. He gently pulled off his gloves and touched her neck, still warm, just barely. He picked her up carefully. She didn't open her eyes. Her body was too cold, too weak. Jonas looked around. No one else was there. No ship, no shelter, no signs of anyone looking for her. She was alone, and she was dying. Jonas didn't waste time. He wrapped her in his thick coat, pressing her small body to his chest. He ran through the snow, his legs heavy, his breath burning in his lungs. His cabin wasn't far, but in this storm, even a short distance felt like forever. By the time he reached his door, his arms were shaking. He kicked it open and rushed inside, placing the girl gently on the thick rug near the fire pit. He lit the fire fast, too fast, his fingers trembling as he sparked the flame. Warmth filled the room slowly. Jonas placed more wood in the fire, then turned to the girl. She hadn't moved. He grabbed his emergency blanket, wrapped her in it, and rubbed her arms and legs to bring back heat. "Come on, little one," he whispered. "You made it this far. Don't stop now." Her lips were still blue. Her skin felt like ice. Jonas grabbed a heat patch and placed it gently on her chest. Then he covered her with another blanket and stayed by her side. Minutes passed. Then, a tiny sound. She coughed, soft and weak. Jonas's heart jumped. She coughed again. Her fingers twitched, then her eyes opened just a little. They were bright silver. She looked confused, scared. Jonas smiled gently. "Hey, you're safe now." She blinked slowly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He leaned in closer. "Can you tell me your name?" Still no sound, just a look that said everything. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know who he was, but most of all, she didn't trust him. Jonas stepped back, giving her space. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She closed her eyes again, too tired to answer, too weak to cry. Jonas stood, heart heavy. Who would leave a child like that, alone in the ice? Was she running from something, or was she left behind on purpose? Later that night, Jonas checked her condition again. Her color was better, her breathing was steady, but she still hadn't spoken. He left her a bowl of warm soup on the floor near her blanket. She didn't touch it. But when he pretended to sleep on the couch, he heard the soft sound of the bowl being picked up, a quiet sip, another, then silence again. Jonas smiled quietly. She was trying to survive. Outside, the snow kept falling. But far above the forest, a dark drone hovered in the sky, watching the cabin below. A blinking red light on its side recorded the heat signatures inside. Target located. The drone flew away, vanishing into the storm. The fire crackled gently. Inside the small wooden cabin, the heat pushed away the cold, but not the fear. Jonas sat on the edge of his couch, eyes watching the small bundle on the floor. The alien girl still slept, wrapped in blankets near the fire. Her breathing was slow, steady. But every now and then she twitched like she was dreaming of something bad. He wondered what she had seen, what she had run from, and who had left her out, there to die. Morning came, pale and gray. Snow covered the window. Jonas stirred a pot of soup and poured it into a small bowl. He set it next to her again, just like the night before. Then, without a word, he sat down near the window, keeping his back turned. He didn't want to scare her. After a long pause, he heard the blanket shift, then soft sipping. She was awake and hungry. That was a good sign. When he finally turned to check on her, he found her staring at him, not with fear this time, but with confusion. She didn't speak, but she didn't run either. Jonas smiled softly. "Hey there, you made it through the night." She blinked. Her silver eyes shimmered in the firelight. Jonas tapped his chest. "Jonas, that's my name." He said it slowly, pointing again. "Jonas." She said nothing, just stared. Then, almost like a whisper, she mouthed something. Not in English, not in any language Jonas knew, but it was a name. Her name. Iria. Jonas repeated it gently. Iria. "That's you?" She nodded slowly. They sat, in silence for a while. Jonas didn't press her with questions. He just placed another log in the fire and poured warm water into a small cup for her. She accepted it without a word, then curled back up into the blankets, watching him like a small animal unsure if she should trust. Around noon, Jonas went outside to check the solar panels. Snow had buried most of them. He brushed the panels off with his gloves, then turned to scan the area. It was quiet, too quiet. His instincts told him something wasn't right. He returned inside. Boots, heavy with snow. Iria was still near the fire, holding the cup close to her chest. She looked up the moment he entered. Jonas knelt beside her. "Iria, I need to know something." He pointed to the fire, then to the snow-covered window. Then he tapped her arm gently, pointing toward the bruises he had noticed earlier. "Who did this?" Iria's face went still. She looked down, tightened her grip on the cup. Then, with a shaking hand, she pointed to her shoulder. There was a faint mark there, a branded symbol burned into her skin. Jonas leaned in, his eyes narrowed. It was the mark of the Frostborn clans, a powerful alien group known for extreme traditions. They were proud, cold, and cruel to those they considered unfit. Jonas had heard rumors. They abandoned children born with weakness or impurity. His chest tightened. She wasn't lost, he whispered to himself. She was left. That night, after Iria fell asleep, Jonas sat at his table and wrote a message into his datapad. Alien girl found. Species unknown. Likely Frostborn. Signs of abandonment. Requesting safe extraction or asylum options. He tried to send it through the comm tower. No response. The storm was still blocking long-range signals. He sighed. "Just one message," he muttered. "I need just one message to go through." Suddenly, a loud knock. Jonas stood up fast. His hand went to the rifle by the door. Another knock, harder. He stepped slowly toward the entrance. I wasn't expecting visitors. He opened the small window slot. Outside stood a tall figure wrapped in snow armor, face hidden by a gray hood. The voice that came through was deep, cold. "You took something that belongs to us." Jonas gripped the rifle tighter. "She's not a thing. She is marked," the voice replied, "by her own people. She's a child. She's cursed," the figure said sharply. "Give her back, and this ends without fire." Jonas didn't answer. He closed the window slowly, locked the door, turned to Iria. She was awake now, sitting up, staring at him. Her body shook, not from cold, but from recognition. She whispered a single word. Hunters. Jonas knelt beside her. They want to take you back? She nodded, eyes wide. Then they'll have to go through me first. He picked up his tools, set traps by the door, loaded his weapon, and sat down near the fire again. I promised you warmth, Iria, he whispered. I'm not letting anyone take that away. She crawled closer, and for the first time, she reached out her hand and touched his. No words, no sound, just quiet trust. Outside the cabin, the figure turned away from the door. He activated a device. On his wrist, a red dot blinked. Tracker set. A voice on his comms replied, "We move at dawn." The sun didn't rise. Not really. On this frozen planet, morning was only a softer kind of darkness. A gray sky. A colder wind. Jonas stood by the window, eyes locked on the forest beyond the snow. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. Not with hunters. Out there. Not with Iria curled up behind him, still small, still quiet. Still in danger. She had spoken more during the night, just a little. Enough to share her story. Enough to break his heart. I was born with a mark, she had whispered, showing him the pale birth symbol on her back. My people believe it means I carry a curse. Jonas didn't believe in curses. He believed in survival, in science, in second chances. But to her people, none of that mattered. They left me on the ice path during first cold, she had said. Alone. I was told if I live, I am strong. If I die, I am forgotten. Jonas had clenched his fists at those words. How could a culture so advanced be so cruel? Now, as wind beat against the cabin walls, Iria slowly woke. She looked at Jonas. He looked tired, but still calm. Still here. He gave her a bowl of warm oats. She ate quietly, then asked a question. Why did you come after me? Jonas smiled. Because I saw your tracks in the snow. You could have walked away. I could have, he said. But you were turning blue, and no one should die cold. Iria looked down. My people say, mercy is weakness. Then your people are wrong. Suddenly, beep, beep, beep. Jonas's motion sensor went off. 3 life forms, approaching fast. He jumped up and grabbed his rifle. Iria froze. They're here. Jonas looked out the window. 3 shadows moved through the trees. 1 tall, 2 smaller, all armed. He whispered, basement, now. Jonas led Iria down into the hidden lower room beneath the wooden floor. It was small but safe, stocked with food and a heat vent. Don't make a sound, he whispered. She nodded, slipping behind a stack of supplies. Jonas closed the hatch just in time. Boom! The front door flew open. Snow and smoke blasted into the cabin. Footsteps followed. Heavy, slow, confident. Jonas, done, a voice called out. Human settler, you have interfered with Frostborn judgment. Jonas stood with his weapon raised. She's a child, a living being. She is marked, the hunter said, stepping into the light. He removed his hood. His skin was white-blue, his face full of scars, his eyes hard like stone. My name is Karnak. I am her blood judge. Jonas didn't lower his weapon. Karnak walked, slowly, circling. I was there the day she was born. I was there when the mark appeared. I gave the order to leave her. She survived, Jonas said sharply. She lived, without help. That mark doesn't mean she's weak. It means she's strong. Karnak's lip curled. Strong for now, but curse forever. Jonas lowered his gun slightly. What does the mark mean to you? Karnak paused, then said one word. Fear. He turned to the fire. You see, human. Long ago, one like her was born. She smiled. She played. But at age 10, Her emotions cracked. The minds of an entire village, they all died. Screaming. Jonas frowned. That doesn't mean Iria will be the same. Karnak looked at him. You're willing to risk that? Jonas nodded. Yes. A silence filled the cabin. Then boom. A blast hit the roof. Jonas ducked. Another group had arrived. Not Frostborn. Unknown armor, dark, military, silent. Karnak cursed. You brought others? Jonas shook his head. Not me. Downstairs, Iria felt the air change. It got colder. Not just from snow, but from fear. She felt it. Deep in her chest, a wave of pain, of danger. She stood, hands trembling. She opened the hatch and climbed out. Jonas saw her. Iria! No! But she walked forward, past him, past Karnak, toward the open door, and looked outside. 5 soldiers stood there. Black suits, red visors. Not Frostborn, not human. Something else. The leader raised a scanner. Subject confirmed. Soul type active. Prepare. Containment. Jonas pulled Iria behind him. Who are you? Karnak shouted. These are soul extractors. They take marked children, sell them to labs. The extractor leader stepped forward. The girl belongs to no one now. Her body will be preserved. Her mind studied. Jonas raised his weapon. Karnak raised his spear, side by side, a human and a Frostborn warrior, for the same child. But before either could strike, Iria screamed, not in fear, in grief. Her eyes glowed faint silver, and the snow outside lifted into the air. The fire in the cabin burned blue. The soldiers froze. One dropped his weapon. Another fell to his knees, not because of pain, but because of sorrow. They were feeling what Iria felt, her abandonment, her cold nights alone, her hunger, her fear, her loneliness. Her power wasn't fire or lightning. It was emotion, raw and unstoppable. Then, silence. All 5 soldiers dropped unconscious. The storm faded, the sky cleared, and Iria collapsed. Jonas caught her before she hit the ground. Karnak stared, breathing heavy. She didn't destroy them, he whispered. She spared them. Jonas nodded. She's not cursed. She's more than that, Karnak said. She's a force we don't understand. Jonas looked at the girl in his arms. Her tiny body, once blue from cold, now warm in his coat, and for the first time, Karnak bowed his head. To reject a child like her, he said, was our greatest sin. The cabin still stood, but it no longer felt like safety. Jonas watched the strange black-armored soldiers being lifted into their ship by automated drones. Their bodies were limp, alive, but silenced by emotion itself. Iria's power. She hadn't meant to hurt them. Her feelings had simply spilled out. Too heavy. Too real. Karnak stood beside Jonas, silent and shaken. I was wrong about her, he admitted. She is not a curse. She is a mirror. Jonas didn't reply. He looked down at the sleeping girl in his arms. Her forehead was damp with sweat. Her small hand held onto his jacket like she was afraid to let go. Then why are we still in danger? Jonas asked. Karnak's face hardened. Because the moment she touched their minds, every lab in the galaxy knew. Jonas looked toward the sky. A black dot blinked high above. A new drone, faster, smarter, watching. They couldn't stay. Jonas packed quickly. Rations, medical kit, thermal blankets. Iria stirred as he wrapped her in warm layers. Where are we going? She asked sleepily. Away from here, he answered. Are we running again? Jonas paused, then said gently, We're moving forward. Karnak led, the way through the snow-covered trees. He knew these lands, he knew the shortcuts, the hiding places, the dangers. Jonas carried Iria on his back. She was still weak after the flare. Her powers drained her energy. But she didn't complain. Not once. They reached the edge of a frozen canyon as night began to fall. A thin bridge of ice stretched across the gap, cracked, narrow, and slippery. Are you serious? Jonas asked. Karnak. There's no other way, Karnak replied. But we must move quickly. That drone will call more soon. Jonas stepped onto the bridge carefully, feeling it shift beneath his boots. With each step, the wind howled louder. Iria clung tightly to him. Don't look down, he whispered. Halfway across, a low mechanical hum filled the air. The drone, it had found them again. It hovered above the canyon and scanned the ice bridge. Suddenly, it released a sharp beam of heat, aimed at the ice. The surface began to crack beneath Jonas's feet. Run! Karnak shouted. Jonas didn't hesitate, he ran. The ice cracked louder, breaking behind him with each step. Iria cried out, "It's falling!" But Jonas kept moving. He could see Karnak at the other end holding out his hand. Just a few more steps. Crack! The ice gave out under his back foot. He jumped, pushing forward with all his strength. Karnak grabbed his wrist, pulled him and Iria to safety, just as the bridge collapsed behind them. The drone zoomed down, preparing another blast, but Karnak pulled a spear from his back and hurled it into the air. It struck the drone directly. Boom! Sparks and smoke exploded as it spiraled out of control and crashed into the canyon below. They didn't stop. They ran deep into the forest until their legs burned and their breath turned to mist. They found a cave hidden behind a frozen waterfall. It was dark, cold, but hidden, safe for now. Inside the cave, Jonas set up a small heat lamp and wrapped Iria in a thick blanket. She was quiet again, too quiet. He sat beside her, his arm around her shoulder. "You did good today," he said softly. "I was scared," she whispered. "I was too. But I still heard you," she said. Jonas looked at her. "What do you mean?" "When we ran, your heart shouted, not with words, but I heard it say, 'Please, let her live.'" Jonas swallowed hard. "Then I heard yours too," he said. She looked up. It said, "Please, don't leave me." Karnak stood near the cave's entrance, watching the trees. He had once ordered Iria to be left behind. Now, he stood guard for her. He couldn't take back what had been done, but he could protect her future. That night, as snow fell outside and the stars blinked silently in the sky, Iria dreamed, but not of fear. She dreamed of hands holding hers, of firelight, of soft voices, of warmth, and far away beyond the moons a ship received the drone's final signal. Inside, a masked figure watched the data screen flash. Subject, Iria status, live response to threat, emotional projection, potential value, unlimited. The figure tapped a gloved finger against the screen. "Prepare the capture team," they said. "Bring her in. This time, no mistakes." The morning was calm. Snowflakes fell like feathers outside the cave. Inside, Iria sat on a stone, holding a smooth crystal she had found near the stream. She turned it in her hands, staring at the light inside it. It glowed softly. Jonas and Karnak watched her from nearby. "She's healing," Jonas said. Karnak nodded. "But peace never lasts when the Empress watches." Jonas glanced at him. "You really think she'll come?" Karnak didn't answer. He just looked at the sky. In the Frostborn capital, miles away, hidden in a fortress of black ice, Empress Valora stood at a high window, her cloak made of white fur and silver threads. Her face was like stone, flawless, and cold. Below her, generals and ministers knelt. One of them spoke nervously. "We lost the child again," another added, and she displayed advanced flare abilities, enough to disable 5 soul hunters. The Empress didn't blink. She turned to her advisor. "Where is she now?" "In human hands," the advisor whispered. "Under the protection of Jonas Dunn. And surprisingly, Karnak." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "Karnak? The one who sentenced her?" "Yes, my Empress. He now protects her." For the first time, her voice dropped into something darker. "They choose warmth over law." She stepped down from her throne. Cold wind followed her. "I will retrieve the child, myself." Back in the cave, Jonas finally got his signal booster to work. A connection flashed on his wrist pad. Incoming message, Human Galactic Council. Low signal, he answered fast. A blurry face appeared on the screen. A council agent, young, tired looking. This is Jonas Dunn. I have a child named Iriah, frostborn, flare-marked. She's in danger. Requesting emergency protection and transport. The councilman frowned. The one with the emotional flare ability? Yes. She's not just in danger, the man said. She's the most hunted child in this sector. Jonas's voice hardened. She's a child. She needs asylum. We can't guarantee safety while she's on Frostborn territory, the man replied. You'll have to bring her to the edge of Zone 3. We'll send a ship to extract her. Jonas nodded. We'll get there. But just before the signal faded, the councilman added something else. Be careful. The Empress is moving. That night, Iria sat beside the fire. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she asked, Jonas, do you think I was born broken? He turned to her gently. Why do you ask that? Because she wants me gone, she whispered. The Empress. She says I'll bring storms, that I'll destroy everything. Jonas leaned forward. Iria, listen to me. You didn't choose to be born with this power, but you do get to choose how you use it. And I've seen you choose mercy. Karnak added from across the cave. The Empress is afraid of things she can't control. That's why she tries to kill them. Iria nodded slowly. Then I will, not be controlled. Just then, boom, the cave wall shook. Snow fell from the ceiling, a deep hum filled the air. They ran outside and saw it, descending from the clouds, a ship like a falling star, silver, sharp, silent. The Empress had arrived. Stepped onto the snow, surrounded by frost-armored guards. But she walked alone. Straight toward the cave. Jonas aimed his rifle. Karnak raised his staff. But the Empress didn't slow down. When she finally stood before them, her voice was calm. I come for the girl. Jonas stepped forward. She's under my protection. Then you will be buried with her. Karnak narrowed his eyes. I once followed you, Valora. I carried out your law. But today, I stand against it. The Empress turned to Iria, and for the first time Iria did not hide. She walked up slowly, calm, her hands open. I know what you see when you look at me, Iria said. You see the end of your rule. The Empress tilted her head. You speak with fire, she said. But I was born in storms. You are still a child. I may be a child, Iria said, but I'm not alone. Suddenly, the snow behind her lifted. The wind changed direction. It moved toward her, not away, responding to her presence. Her power wasn't flaring out wildly anymore. It was calm, controlled. The Empress took a step back. You've already begun the transformation, she whispered. Jonas looked at Iria. What transformation? Karnak answered softly. She is becoming the opposite of the Empress. A new force. A living bond between emotion and power. The Empress gave a single order. Seize her. But none of the guards moved. They had felt her presence. They had seen her stand alone, and they feared her not for her power, but for her peace. She had not attacked, and yet they were disarmed. One by one, they lowered their weapons. The Empress clenched her jaw. You will regret this. No, Iria said. I will remember it. The Empress turned, climbed back into her ship, and disappeared into the clouds. Defeated. Not by war, but by hope. The cave was silent after the Empress left, but it was not over. Jonas stood at the edge of the entrance, watching the sky turn darker. The storm clouds returned, not natural ones but machine-made. Clouds pushed by engines, part of a fleet. He turned to Karnak. You believe she'll try again? Karnak nodded. She lost face today, That's more dangerous than losing a battle. Iria sat by the fire, her legs crossed, the crystal still glowing in her lap. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She had stared down the most feared ruler in the sector and walked away, standing. Still, the danger wasn't gone. It was gathering. That night, Jonas activated his emergency beacon again. The council's voice returned, clearer this time. Ship en route. Arrival in 12 hours. Location confirmed. Zone 3 border. Jonas looked at Iria. 12 hours, he said softly. We just have to last 12 more hours. But they knew better. The Empress would never wait that long. Karnak showed them a place, a hidden valley not far from the cave. Deep in its center stood an ancient frost temple, long abandoned. It had walls of stone, a roof of ice, and carvings, from a time before law, before war. No sensors can find us here, Karnak explained, but they can still follow our heat. Jonas set up heat reflectors. Karnak built small ice shields. Iria stayed in the center of the temple, focused, waiting. They didn't have to wait long. Near midnight, a new kind of sound echoed through the valley. Metal footsteps. Not soldiers, not hunters, machines, drones with 2 legs and glowing arms, made to capture and contain. Jonas raised his rifle. Karnak took a battle stance. Iria stood up slowly. She wasn't glowing. Not yet. Just calm. Still. The first drone entered the temple. It scanned her. A voice played from its chest. Warning. Subject classified as flare-kind, emotion level 5. Immediate capture required. Resistance will trigger suppression. Iria stepped forward. I will not run. The drone fired. A net of glowing threads shot toward her, but it never touched her. The threads melted mid-air. The room grew warm. The snow on the temple walls dripped. Jonas blinked. She's changing the temperature. No, Karnak said, in awe. She's choosing it. Outside the temple, 10 more drones approached. Jonas and Karnak fought hard, blasting and striking. But for every one they took down, 2 more arrived. One drone knocked Jonas to the ground. Another grabbed Karnak, crushing his arm. Inside, Iria heard their pain. She didn't scream this time. She breathed, in, out, and stepped outside the temple. The valley wind stopped. Everything stood still. The drones turned toward her. She walked slowly between them. They scanned her again. Emotional surge detected. Level 6. She raised one hand and set the air on fire. But not burning fire. Memory fire. The machines froze. Not physically, but mentally. They were built to learn emotions, but she gave them too many at once. Memories of being cold, alone, hurt. Then, warm hands. Laughter. A name being spoken kindly. Iria. Each drone dropped, not destroyed, just disconnected. Their minds overloaded by feelings they were never meant to feel. Jonas sat up, stunned. You didn't fight them. Iria looked back. I showed them who I am. Karnak limped to her side. You are not just Frostborn, he said, voice shaking. You are Flare Mind, a myth our people feared, a bridge between fire and feeling. Jonas smiled, though his face was bruised. She's just Iria to me. The beacon lit up on Jonas's wrist. Rescue ship arriving in 2 minutes. He turned to Iria. This is it. They'll take you far from here. Somewhere safe. But Iria took his hand. Only if you come with me. Jonas blinked. You want me to go? You gave me warmth when I was dying. You gave me hope when I was forgotten. She squeezed his fingers. I want you to be with me when I start again. High above, the rescue ship roared into the clouds. A bright light cut through the snow. The council had come, not to fight but to protect for the first time. Iria stepped into a ship not as a prisoner, but as a guest, as a citizen. Far away in her palace of ice, the Empress stood silent before her empty throne. She watched a screen. It showed Iria stepping into the ship, smiling. Alive? Free. The Empress whispered to herself, "Then let the stars witness her rise. I will not stop her again." The stars looked bigger from space. Iria sat by the window of the rescue ship, her chin resting on her knees. Her silver eyes reflected the passing planets. She had never left her world before, never dreamed she would leave alive. And yet here she was, wrapped in a warm coat, safe, but not alone. Behind her, Jonas sipped tea from a metal cup. He watched her silently, heart full of thoughts he couldn't explain, and beside him sat Karnak, arm in a sling, eyes quiet, soul heavier than ever. "You're both too calm," Jonas finally said. "She's leading," Karnak replied. "And we are only catching up." They landed on a peaceful human colony near the border, neutral ground, free from any alien empire's control. A small crowd stood waiting. Doctors, diplomats, children, but no guards, no weapons, just open arms. Iria stepped out of the ship holding Jonas's hand. A councilwoman greeted them. "Welcome to Haven," she said softly. "You are safe here, Iria." Iria didn't answer right away. She looked around, smelled fresh air, saw other children playing in the fields beyond the landing zone, a life she never thought she'd have. She turned to Jonas. "Can we stay?" He smiled. "As long as you want." The council offered Iria citizenship. They scanned her genetics, studied her abilities, and listened to her story. But unlike others, they did not fear her power. They respected her choice to not use it for harm. They saw her as a survivor, a sign of something new. Weeks passed. Iria went to school. Learned fast. She liked music, art, stories. She painted the night sky with colors Jonas didn't know existed. And each night, she placed a blanket on the couch before bed. For Jonas, even if he always said he didn't need it. "You gave me warmth," she told him once. "So I leave some for you too." One day, a council leader called them both into a meeting. He said, "There's a message. From the Frostborn homeworld." Karnak sat up straighter. They've seen what she's become. Some fear her. Others want to speak with her. A few even say they want to learn from her. Jonas looked at Iria. "What do you want to do?" She thought for a long moment, then answered, "I want to be the last one left to freeze. I want to make sure no other child is left behind." So they created a new title, the First Flame of Haven. It belonged to her. And with it came a mission, to find and protect other forgotten children, flare-marked or not, across space. To be a voice where there was once only silence, to bring warmth to all who were left in the cold. Years passed, but the story never faded. A statue was built in the middle of Haven's plaza. It showed a small girl with silver eyes holding a lantern, standing beside a human man in a long coat. Beneath it were carved the words, "She was never just a child. She was the light that taught us to feel again." Dedicated to Iria and Jonas back on Frostborn territory, things began to change. Karnak returned to his people, not as a warrior, but as a witness. He spoke in the Great Hall. He told them, "I saw her heart. I saw her power. She gave me both, pain and peace. She is not cursed. She is what comes next." Many listened, some refused, but the ice had begun to crack, and even the oldest frost must melt. Someday. One evening, Iria stood on Haven's balcony, now taller, older, her coat longer, her eyes wiser. She held a small stone in her hand, the same crystal from the cave. Jonas walked up beside her. He had gray in his beard now, and a tired smile. "Thinking about the past?" he asked. "No," Iria replied. She pointed to the stars. "I'm thinking about who's still out there, still cold, still scared." Jonas looked at her. "You ready?" She nodded. And this time she wasn't being rescued, she was the rescuer. They boarded a new ship, sleek, fast, painted with a symbol of a burning snowflake. On the side, it read, Project Hearthlight, led by First Flame Iria Dunaz, the engines. Roared to life, she sat in the pilot seat, Jonas beside her. They looked forward, not back. The cold could come again. The darkness might return, but Iria had become something stronger. She had become hope, and hope never freezes.